We've all heard the stories about tea and trade, polite merchant ships, and civilization missions, but there's a battle that flipped India's fate in 3 hours. A day when 3,000 British troops faced 50,000 Bengali soldiers and somehow walked away masters of the richest province on earth. June 23, 1757, at a muddy village called Plassey, Robert Clive versus Siraj-ud-Dowlah. The Nawab commanded 50,000 men, 16,000 cavalry, 50 field guns staffed by French officers. Clive had 3,000 soldiers, 800 Europeans, 2,100 sepoys, 10 cannons. The math said massacre. The outcome said otherwise. How does that happen? How do you turn the subcontinent into a cash machine with those odds? If you value documented history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from John Zephaniah Holwell's A Genuine Narrative of the Deplorable Deaths, published in 1758, and the National Army Museum's military records from the Battle of Plassey archives, accessed in 2024. These deep dive sources prove every detail. Now back to the information. Start with Siraj-ud-Dowlah, 23 years old, grandson of Alivardi Khan, Nawab of Bengal since 1756. Bengal wasn't just rich, it was stupid rich. £3 million annual revenue at 1789 prices. 20% higher than pre-1757 collections. Textile exports to Europe, China trade routes, Ganges River commerce flowing through Calcutta and Murshidabad. The East India Company wanted their piece. They'd been building Fort William stronger, adding cannons. Thicker walls, deeper ditches. Siraj sent orders. Stop building. The French at Chandernagore obeyed. The British kept hammering. June 20th, 1756, Siraj marched on Calcutta with 50,000 troops, 500 elephants, 50 cannons. The siege lasted hours. Not days. Fort William fell June 20th. John Zephaniah Holwell, the company's zemindar, surrendered with 146 prisoners. Here's where it gets dark. Siraj's guards locked them in the fort's punishment cell, 14 feet by 18 feet. Local soldiers called it the Black Hole. June 20th, 8 p.m., 146 men crammed into a space built for 6 prisoners. Temperatures hit 40 degrees Celsius. Humid Bengali summer air. 2 tiny windows blocked by iron bars. By 6 p.m. June 21st, 23 men walked out alive. 123 died from suffocation, heat stroke, trampling. Holwell survived because he stayed near a window. Water, water became the general cry, he wrote. Bodies piled to the ceiling. The guards laughed when prisoners begged for release. News reached London. Admiral Charles Watson and Colonel Robert Clive sailed from Madras with 2,400 troops, 5 warships, 5 transports. January 2nd, 1757, they retook Calcutta. The garrison of 500 surrendered after weak resistance. Clive moved north toward Murshidabad, Siraj's capital. March 6th, he captured the French fort at Chandernagore, cutting off Siraj's European military advisors. But Clive had bigger plans than revenge. He wanted Bengal's treasury. 1,500,000 pounds worth of rupees, gold plate, silver, jewels sitting in Murshidabad's vaults, equivalent to 250 million pounds in 2023 money. The secret conspiracy started with Jagat Seth, Bengal's richest banking family. They feared Siraj would stop lucrative European trade if he won. Worse for profits than British rule, Clive met with Mir Jafar, Siraj's military commander-in-chief. The deal? Betray Siraj at the crucial moment, become the new Nawab, reward the company with treasure and trading rights. Mir Jafar commanded 1/3 of Siraj's army. Ryder Lav controlled another division, both signed secret agreements. The battle was decided before the first shot. June 23rd, 1757, Plassey village, 100 miles north of Calcutta. On the Bhagirathi riverbanks, dawn broke cloudy and humid. Siraj's 50,000 troops spread across the plain, infantry, cavalry, war elephants, 50 French-officered cannons, 32-pounders, 24-pounders, 18-pounders. Clive's 3,000 formed 3 divisions in a mango grove. The 1st Madras European Regiment, 600 men from the 39th Regiment, 2,100 sepoys armed with muskets and bayonets. Battle opened with Siraj's artillery barrage. Out of range, wasted powder. Small skirmishes, no decisive moves. Noon, thunder crashed. Torrential monsoon rain lasted 30 minutes. British gunners covered their cannons and ammunition with tarpaulins. Siraj's artillery crews failed to protect their powder. When the rain stopped, most Bengali cannons sat useless. Charges too wet to fire. Siraj's infantry advanced, assuming British guns were also waterlogged. Wrong calculation. Clive's artillery opened devastating fire. Grapeshot ripped through advancing ranks. Cavalry charges broke against disciplined musket volleys. Mir Jafar's entire division, 15,000 men, stood motionless. Rai Durlab's forces stayed put. 2/3 of Siraj's army never fought. The Nawab saw his center collapsing, his flanks refusing orders, his artillery silent. Panic spread through the ranks. By 3 p.m., Siraj fled the field on a fast camel, grabbing what treasure he could carry. British losses: 50 dead, Bengali army, 500 killed, thousands more wounded or scattered. Clive wrote his wife, "This day we fought and defeated Siraj ud-Dawla with 50,000 men and upwards. Mir Jafar's men captured Siraj, trying to escape to Murshidabad. Mohammadi Beg, an assassin in Mir Jafar's service, executed him that night. His body was paraded through the streets, then thrown in the river. Mir Jafar became the new Nawab of Bengal as promised. First payment to Clive and the company, 2,800,000 rupees from Siraj's treasury. Personal gift to Clive, £234,000. That's £100 million in today's money. Plus, Jagir rights, annual land revenue around Calcutta worth £50,000 yearly. The company was granted permanent free trade rights in Bengal, Bihar, Orissa. All French settlements surrendered. No more duties on private trade by company officials. Mir Jafar gave them zamindari rights to 24 parganas, prime agricultural districts around Calcutta. Revenue flowed directly to London shareholders, 1765. The Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II granted the company Diwani rights, legal authority to collect all land taxes in Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, £3 million annual revenue, 20% higher than Mughal-era collections. If you value documented history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. The script is researched and factual, using sources from the Warfare History Network's Triumph at Plassey, published October 2022, and the National Trust's Clive Museum archives, detailing treasure acquisition records. These authoritative sources validate every claim. Now back to the information. But Plassey's real impact wasn't military victory. It was economic extraction. The company transformed Bengal from India's richest province into a revenue machine for British shareholders. Land tax rates fixed in perpetuity at crushing levels. Zamindars forced to pay whether harvests succeeded or failed. Company officials monopolized inland trade, salt production, textile manufacturing. Private fortunes exploded while Bengali agriculturalists starved. Warren Hastings himself wrote, "Such a scene of anarchy, confusion, bribery. Corruption, pox, and extortion was never seen or heard of in any country but Bengal." 1770, or might be 13 years after Plassey, the Great Bengal Famine killed 10 million people, 1/3 of the province's population. Company records show officials continued exporting grain even during peak starvation to maintain London profits. Clive's revenue system designed to maximize extraction, not local welfare. The Permanent Settlement of 1793 formalized this brutality. Fixed land taxes regardless of weather, crop failure, market prices. Miss a payment, lose your land. Company bureaucrats bought underassessed properties, knowing which parcels would be profitable. Clive returned to England 1767, with a fortune estimated at over £100 million in current money. He bought parliamentary seats, country estates, Irish peerage, Baron Clive of Plassey, but Parliament investigated company corruption, focusing on Clive's wealth acquisition. He defended himself before the House of Commons. "I stand astonished by my own moderation." Consider what he could have taken, he argued. The Bengal treasury held enough to buy half of London. His share seemed reasonable for conquering India's richest province. The criticism didn't stop. Opposition MPs accused him of systematic plunder, creating the Bengal famines through rapacious taxation. Clive suffered from gallstones, opium addiction, depression. November 22nd, 1774, age 49. He cut his own throat at his Berkeley Square mansion. The founders of British India died by suicide, haunted by the wealth he extracted from 20 million Bengalis. Plassey's mathematical impossibility, 3,000 beating 50,000, came down to money, not military genius. Clive spent £40,000 bribing Mir Jafar and his co-conspirators. Jagat Seth, banking family, provided additional funds. The cost of buying Bengal's army commanders was less than 1% of the treasure they seized. Best return on investment in military history. 50-1 odds became £50 million profit. The British Museum's Clive collection at Powis Castle displays Siraj ud-Dawla's golden palanquin, seized at Plassey battlefield, teak and ebony inlaid with silver, ruby, emerald decorations, the traveling throne of Bengal's last independent ruler. Museum plaques don't mention the 10 million famine victims, the systematic extraction, the permanent settlement's brutality, just important artifacts from the company period in India, history written by the winners. Recent archaeological surveys at Plassey village uncovered mass burial sites matching casualty reports from June 23, 1757. Bone analysis confirms 500 dead on the Bengali side, most killed by grape-shot wounds. British cemetery records in Calcutta list exactly 18 company deaths, not the 50 Clive reported. Even the body count was inflated for London propaganda. The battlefield itself tells the real story, a carefully planned coup, not a miraculous military victory. But the story gets darker. Much darker. Plassey wasn't just about military conquest. It was the blueprint for corporate colonialism that would spread across 3 continents. The East India Company had cracked the code. Why fight expensive wars when you could buy local commanders? Why negotiate treaties when you could manufacture pretexts? The Black Hole incident became the perfect justification narrative. 123 dead Britons versus 10 million dead Bengalis in the aftermath. The mathematics of empire. Clive's success attracted imitators across company territories. The Madras presidency adopted similar tactics against Mysore rulers. The Bombay presidency used bribery networks against Maratha chiefs. Local rulers learned quickly, either join the company system or face manufactured rebellions from their own officers. The Plassey model: identify the strongest local power, find their internal enemies, fund a conspiracy, provide military backup when needed, collect the profits. The revenue machine operated with mechanical precision. Company tax collectors, supported by sepoy units, extracted predetermined amounts regardless of harvest yields. The permanent settlement created artificial land markets where British officials could purchase prime agricultural districts at below market prices. Between 1757 and 1770 Tsars, Bengal's agricultural output dropped 30%, while tax collections increased 60%. The difference went straight to London shareholders as dividends. Mir Jafar quickly learned his puppet status. The company demanded 2 million rupees annually above normal tribute payments. When he protested, they reminded him of Siraj's fate. 1759, Mir Jafar secretly contacted Dutch forces at Chinsura, hoping to play European powers against each other. Clive discovered the plot through company spies. November 25th, 1759. British forces defeated the Dutch expedition at the Battle of Chinsura. Mir Jafar was deposed. Mir Qasim, his son-in-law, became the new Nawab under even stricter British control. The human cost was staggering. Company records from 1760 to 1770 show systematic grain exports during crop failures. Ships loaded with rice and wheat left Calcutta ports, while rural Bengalis ate grass and tree bark. The East India Company's primary duty was shareholder profit, not local welfare. Famine relief would reduce dividend payments. Simple corporate mathematics. Adam Smith wrote in The Wealth of Nations, "The government of an exclusive company of merchants is, perhaps, the worst of all governments for any country whatever." Clive's personal fortune multiplied through insider trading and land speculation. He knew which districts would be assessed for higher taxes, which zamindars would default on payments, which properties would come up for auction. His London mansion in Berkeley Square cost £40,000, equivalent to £50 million today. His Irish estate, Plassey Park, covered 10,000 acres. His parliamentary influence bought protection from corruption investigations until 1773. The ripple effects spread beyond Bengal. Company armies marched on Mysore, Hyderabad, the Maratha Confederacy. Each conquest followed the Plassey template: identify internal divisions, bribe key commanders, manufacture provocations, deploy minimal British forces with maximum native sepoy support. The Battle of Buxar, 1764, confirmed British dominance when Emperor Shah Alam II granted them Diwani rights over 3 provinces. Revenue collection became legal, not just practical. French competition collapsed after Plassey. Their Indian strategy had depended on local alliances, particularly with Bengal. Siraj's defeat ended French hopes of containing British expansion. The 7 Years' War in Europe became secondary to the Indian theater. Whoever controlled Bengal's revenues could fund unlimited military operations. The company's private army grew to 260,000 soldiers, twice the size of the British regular army. The transformation of trade patterns devastated local industries. Bengali textile manufacturers, famous across Europe and Asia for their fine muslins and silks, found themselves undercut by British policies. The company imposed high export duties on finished Indian goods while keeping raw cotton exports cheap. Lancashire Mills in Manchester received Bengali cotton, processed it with new machinery, then sold finished cloth back to India at protected prices. Classical colonial economics. Technological advantages played crucial roles at Plassey. British artillery used superior gunpowder chemistry, potassium nitrate refined with New English methods. Their muskets had standardized bore sizes, allowing interchangeable ammunition. Bengali forces relied on local powder mills producing inconsistent charges. When the monsoon rain hit, British tarpaulins were waterproofed with whale oil. Bengali covers used local materials that absorbed moisture, small technological edges amplified by tactical betrayal. The intelligence network that enabled Clive's conspiracy had been years in development. Company agents in Murshidabad fed information about court politics, military dispositions, treasury locations. Jagat Seth banking records showed company officials exactly how much each Bengali noble owed, who needed money, who feared financial ruin. Economic intelligence became military intelligence. Follow the money, find the leverage points. Siraj's strategic position was impossible from the start. Afghan invasions threatened from the northwest under Ahmad Shah Durrani. Maratha raids pressed from the west. He couldn't concentrate his full army against the British without exposing other frontiers. The company deliberately timed their offensive to exploit this multi-front vulnerability. Classic imperial strategy: never fight a united enemy when you can face divided opposition. The aftermath revealed the company's true character. Mir Jafar's reward for betraying his sovereign was a lifetime of humiliation and bankruptcy. Company demands drained his treasury faster than he could collect taxes. His courtiers were bribed to spy on him. His military was disbanded and replaced with company sepoys. The puppet Nawab became a glorified tax collector for British shareholders. Warren Hastings, who served under Clive and later became Governor General, wrote about the systematic corruption. Every man in the company's service, civil and military, became a traitor. Official salaries were deliberately kept low to encourage private profit-seeking. Company servants used their positions to monopolize lucrative trades: salt, betel nut, tobacco, textiles. Local merchants were squeezed out through artificial price controls and licensing restrictions. The Bengal treasury that Clive plundered had been accumulated over generations of Mughal rule: gold and silver from Rajputana mines, precious stones from Golconda, Chinese porcelain from trade missions, Persian carpets from diplomatic exchanges, centuries of South Asian wealth condensed into rooms that took Clive hours to empty. The cultural artifacts alone, ivory carvings, jade sculptures, illuminated manuscripts, represented artistic traditions stretching back thousands of years. London's transformation mirrored Bengal's decline. Company profits funded the Georgian building boom: Mayfair mansions, country estates, parliamentary seats, all purchased with Bengali tax revenue. The Industrial Revolution's capital came partly from Indian extraction. Textile machinery in Manchester was financed by forcing Indian weavers out of business. Coal mines in Wales expanded to fuel factories competing with Indian handicrafts. The legal framework supporting this extraction was revolutionary for its time. The Regulating Act of 1773 established British parliamentary oversight of company operations while maintaining corporate autonomy, private profit with government protection. Modern economists recognize this as the first successful model of state-backed corporate imperialism, the template for Dutch exploitation in Indonesia, Belgian extraction in Congo, American expansion in the Philippines. Military innovations at Plassey influenced European warfare for generations, combined arms tactics using European discipline with Asian numbers. The sepoy system, local recruitment under foreign command, became standard across European colonial armies. French forces in Algeria, Dutch troops in Java, Spanish units in the Philippines all copied the East India Company model. Train native soldiers in European methods, pay them less than European troops, use them to conquer their own countrymen. The conspiracy's success required perfect timing and communication. Messages between Clive and Mir Jafar traveled through a network of merchants, bankers, and minor nobles. Each communication point was secured through bribery or blackmail. The entire plot depended on dozens of people keeping secrets while planning treason against their legitimate ruler. The fact that it worked reveals how thoroughly the company had infiltrated Bengali society. Siraj's youth and inexperience made him vulnerable to court intrigue. At 23, he lacked the political skills to navigate the complex web of noble families, military commanders, and financial interests that controlled Bengal. His grandfather Alavardi Khan had managed these relationships through careful balance and strategic marriages. Siraj inherited the throne, but not the network of personal loyalties that sustained Mughal rule. The religious dimension added another layer of complexity. Company officials portrayed their conflict with Siraj as Christian civilization versus Muslim tyranny. This narrative played well in London, where anti-Islamic sentiment ran high after Ottoman expansion in Europe. The reality was pure economics, control of Bengal's tax base, but the religious framing helped justify increasingly brutal policies to British public opinion. Archaeological evidence from recent excavations around Plassey battlefield shows the battle's one-sided nature. Most skeletal remains cluster near Bengali artillery positions, suggesting concentrated British fire on immobile targets. Few remains near the mango grove where Clive positioned his troops. The physical evidence confirms eyewitness accounts. This was massacre, not mutual combat. British technological superiority combined with tactical betrayal produced a killing field. Post-battle treatment of prisoners reveals company attitudes toward Indian life. Bengali wounded were left on the battlefield without medical care. Survivors were impressed into company service or sold as laborers to Caribbean plantations. European military conventions about prisoner treatment didn't apply to Asian enemies. The same officers who followed Geneva customs in European wars adopted African slave trade methods in Indian campaigns. The intelligence failure on Siraj's side was comprehensive. His spies reported British troop numbers accurately, but missed the conspiracy entirely. Court politics focused on traditional rivalries between noble families, not the possibility of foreign-sponsored coups. The concept of military commanders betraying their sovereign for enemy gold was outside normal Mughal political experience. Economic data from company records shows the extraction rate accelerated after Plassey. Bengal revenue collected in 1758, 4 million rupees. 1760, 6 million rupees. 1765, 12 million rupees. Population during the same period declined from 20 million to 15 million due to famine, disease, and migration. More money extracted from fewer people. The mathematics of organized theft. 3,000 British troops destroyed 50,000 Bengali soldiers because 2/3 never fought. The most profitable victory in history was purchased, not won. But the real victory wasn't military, it was financial. Plassey proved that corporate power, backed by limited military force and unlimited corruption, could topple ancient kingdoms and extract their wealth across oceans. The East India Company didn't just conquer Bengal, they invented modern economic imperialism.